Thank you all for joining this session. Welcome to Our Future, Our Voices Summit. I appreciate you dialing in from wherever time zone you're in. I know for some people it might be evening after a very long Monday. So thank you so much for joining. As I said earlier, my name is Sheena Lebu. And for today's evening session, we'll be focused on social media. If you're comfortable, feel free to turn on your video, but either way, we should be good. For today's session, I'm going to be focusing on how, given that the world is changing, everyone's going online, especially given that coronavirus has quarantined a lot of us in our homes, no matter what country you're from. We've seen that there's been an increase in use of social media. So how can you as an organization leverage these platforms to help tell your brand story, to fundraise, and also to raise awareness to your cause? But before we do that, I was hoping that we could try and get to know each other a bit. As I said, we've all been home for most of us, we've been quarantined for a couple of months now, no matter what part of the world you're from. So I'd like to see what type of activity all of you have been doing while you've been working from home or living at home, or just whatever you've been doing in 2020. We have like a version of bingo. I've never played bingo before, but I thought we could play this together. Look at the table that's in front of you and type in the chat, what activities have you done over the past couple of months? So we can get a sense of, like, as we've been quarantining, how many of you have either tried TikTok? How many of you have met clients on Zoom? Have any of you gotten your account hacked? It would be great to hear from you in the chat. So feel free to type in anything out of the table that you've done over the past couple of months. And I'm gonna go in and type in a couple myself. Craig, I understand everyone, we've been doing a lot of Zoom calls. Everything's virtual. Patricia, I'm with you. I downloaded, removed TikTok, re-downloaded it again, created an account, deleted it. We've all been in that wave. We've all been captured. I love it. I love it. Thank you all. Thank you for participating. So I can see we've all spent a lot of hours on social media platforms, from Instagram to TikTok. We're learning skills online, whether it's on these social media platforms or through webinars. So this is great. This is great. We're all on the same page. So no matter what part of the world you're from, we're all doing the same thing. So that in a way is a way for us to, like, be one as a people. We're all in this together. Thank you all for participating. So let's get into the meat of our discussion today. This is our agenda today. I'm hoping that this will be interesting because I know it's evening for some of you. For today, we'll be going through what goes into a social media strategy, how brands use social media for storytelling and fundraising, some best practices for social media, which also encompasses a couple of questions that I know a lot of you have regarding social media. And then fourth, we'll cover what are some available free tools that you could use for your social media management going forward. One thing I'd like to say is if you have any questions as I go through the slides, please feel free to type in the chat and we'll address them either during the sessions where we have activities or right at the end where we have a Q&A session. I'll be able to answer a lot more of your questions there. So just to give a sense of, like, social media and social media strategy. When people talk about social media strategy, everyone's like, what exactly goes into a strategy? What is a social media strategy? And basically what this is, it's a summary of everything that you plan to do and hope to achieve on social media. So it enables you to actually have things to point to whenever you're creating content or you're trying to pay for any type of content on social media. It enables you to have something to refer to as you're building your presence online. And in creating a social media strategy, there are 5 key items that are very important for you. So for the first one is goals, the second is audience, the third is competitors. So understanding what your competitors are doing online and what you can learn from them. Understanding your platform. So what exactly are you currently doing on social media? Are your social media profiles up to date? And 5th, defining like platform focus. And we'll go deeply into a couple of these items, but this is just like a sense of when you're thinking of social media strategy, these are the 5 things you need to be having in mind going in. But before I share what exactly my vision of what I think a social media strategy could look like, a lot of people don't realize when it comes to social media, you actually know more than you think, given that you're on these platforms on a day-to-day basis. And actually the users define what exactly is good content, what is good social media for themselves. And especially given that all of you are in the social impact space, you've identified brands that you either follow, whether it's in your industry or outside, that are doing very well on social media, that maybe inspiration for you as you build your social media. So in order to just like get a sense of what type of content you like to follow online, what great brands you've seen, if you could type in the chat, one great brand that you like or you follow on social media and one thing that stands out on their social media. An example that I have in places I love Charity Water. Their social media strategy is amazing. Their Facebook presence and Instagram looks great. They share a lot of videos, photos of their work, and also they enable donations through their channels so that you're able actually to support them through social media. So if there's any brand, it doesn't have to be an organization by itself. It could be a person that you follow. So if you could type it into the chat, one brand that you love on social media and why you like them. I can see Craig put in Seth Godin. And I agree, I do follow him on social media. It's very, I want to say, witty in the type of content that he shares, testing out new things and new capabilities within his industry and just on social media. I can also see Patagonia. They do take a lot of brave stands when it comes to sustainability. Their messaging is always outright, no hidden agenda with them. Is there anyone who has a brand that they would like to share? As we wait, the one thing that I'd just like to outline is when we're looking at brands and what they're doing on whichever platform they're on, you have to realize that you can never outdo them at their game. What you're trying to gain is actually understand what are they doing and what can I learn that can be implemented in my organization's platform. For example, when you look at, if you're based in the United States, the one thing that Wendy's, which is like a food brand that is known to be, they're very funny and witty in their responses to their consumers. Whenever their consumers tag them or comment them towards their accounts, they always have funny responses that tend to go viral. But in your case, when you're looking at that, yes, you may want to be responding to your audience and want to be engaging, but you can never be as funny as Wendy's. That's their own thing. You just have to realize that you need to create your own thing that will fit your organization. Great. So let's go into the next slide and back to the social media strategy. As I said, thank you, Heber. I can see, yeah, Amazon and Netflix, they do. Yeah, it's great. They do also share great video content that is just snippets of their content on platform. So back to the social media strategy. As I mentioned earlier, there are 5 key items that you need to focus on. But for today's session, given the time limitations, I'm going to focus on the top three things that you can go out of this session thinking and thinking about and having action items towards. And that would be goals. So how do you identify marketing goals, social media marketing goals? How do you identify your audience and where they are on social media? And third, how do you define the focus of your different platforms that you are on? So first, when you think of social media goals, a couple of questions that we tend to get on social media by different organizations or different departments in large organizations is, I want to be on social media. I want to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D. Some people tend to have a lot of things that they want to do on social media. And the one thing to narrow down your focus and make sure that your social media is working for you is to identify what are your business goals and how can that be translated into social media. So if you're a new organization, one of your business goals is definitely to create awareness. So your social media should reflect that. You should be posting a lot of content that you want to build a following for. You want people to share your content. That should be the focus and the goal of your social media account. For more established organizations that have built a brand presence, people know who they are, maybe the second stage of your business goal is just to make sure you're turning your followers into advocates. You're trying to get as much more engagement from the followers that you have. And similar to that, you should translate that into your social media. And the four different goals that I've identified at the table on the slide is awareness, engagement, conversion, and consumer retention. What is important is to not try and do multiple things on your social media platform, because that means your messaging is going to be a little bit confusing for someone who's following you for the first time. You need to make sure you have a clear focus, even for your analytics, to make sure that at the end of 3 months, if you've been on social media, what are the metrics that you're looking at? It varies depending on what goal you had right at the beginning of your account management. The second one is identifying your audience and the social media platform. So one of the challenges of social media is that there's so many social media accounts and profiles that you could create, but not every platform could fit your organization. The first thing, after you've identified your social media goals, what that helps you do is to realize which type of audience you're trying to speak to. So if you're trying to speak to donors, you're trying to create more awareness towards like people who can donate to your cause, you can create, you have an audience in mind. You have to figure out what type of age range you're trying to reach. Are you trying to reach more females than males? Are you trying to reach people who are in cities versus rural areas? All that information is helpful for you to narrow down what social media platforms you're on. And for an example, in the images that are provided here, this is from a report that you can find online. You can just search for the different audience types for different social media platforms. You can if you're a female-oriented organization, one of the things to know here is Facebook might be the platform for you to be on because it skews heavily on the females compared to male. On the other hand, if you're trying to reach more people who are in rural areas, Facebook may also be the place to be on compared to Twitter. So once you're able to narrow down your audience and the type of people you're trying to reach, then it enables you to decide where you should be playing a part on social media. You might create a Twitter account, yet the audience you're trying to reach is on Facebook. So you're focusing your energy in the wrong platform completely. The third thing is defining platform focus. And the question that you would have in this case is, yes, let's say I have the resources to be on multiple platforms. Should I post the same thing across different platforms? Should I create new content for each platform? And the recommendation that we give to a lot of brands is, it depends on how people show up on these platforms. You need to identify, even when you're going to social media, you go to Twitter for something different. You go to TikTok for something different. You go to LinkedIn for something totally different. When you think of your audience, think of it as a person. When you go to Twitter, you're looking for ideas. You're trying to look for news. What's the new thing in your industry? But when you go to TikTok, you're looking for entertainment, you're looking for the next challenge that people are doing. So you as a brand need to show up in the same way people are showing up on those platforms. You can't go to LinkedIn and post a TikTok style video. That's not what people are looking for there. Instead, they're looking to learn more about like, what does it mean to work for your organization? What does it mean for like career changes? If someone's looking to move into social impact and they don't know anything about it, maybe your organization should be the one providing that information on LinkedIn. I know I've talked a bit to you, Viviana. I can see in your chat that you requested a link to the resource. I will provide that during one of the activity breaks for everyone to access. But any other questions? I know I've been talking at you for a couple of minutes right now. Okay, great. In this slide, I'll talk to you a bit about, as I said, my favorite organization on social media, in this case, Charity Water, and what they do on, how do they show up on Facebook and Instagram. For anyone who doesn't know what Charity Water is, it's a nonprofit organization focused on bringing clean drinking water to people in developed countries. They've funded a lot of well projects where they dig wells and local communities are able to access fresh water. And as I said earlier, their online presence from their website to their social media is just geared towards awareness and fundraising. In the first image, I took a screenshot of the Charity Water Instagram. They tell the story of their brand through a lot of imagery. They invest heavily on videography, high quality photos, and especially for Instagram, where everyone's posting high quality polished photos, every organization should match that standard. So if you're an organization looking to be on Instagram, you can't post low quality imagery because no one will engage with your content. People will actually block you because you're interrupting their feed. So if Instagram is a place that you want to heavily play, you just have to be aware that people are looking for very high quality video and photo content. But in the way that you tell their story, they show imagery of users who are using their well, people who are taking water from their wells. They have a specific signifier, which is like a little gallon of water that has the branding of Charity Water, and they tend to replay that over and over. So in your brain, if you're a follower, when you see an image from Charity Water, you associate it with the brand. And they do this across all their social media channels. But for Instagram, I just wanted, because it's a very niche platform in the type of content, they're very clear in what in the story they're telling there. The second screenshot is a different way that they're telling their story and building a momentum around their cause. So a lot of you, if you're on Facebook, you'll notice that Facebook has changed its algorithm to prioritize groups more than the news feed. Videos is also another thing that they're prioritizing. Because if you're a page and you post an image or a post on your Facebook page, unless you're boosting it via paid, you don't get a lot of traction on it. Instead, a lot of organizations are creating Facebook groups where they encourage their followers and people who donate to their cause, people who are their supporters, to join these groups where they can post relevant information that's targeted to people who are their supporters. So there's a lot of like local supporter groups on Facebook specifically about Charity Water. And a lot of the group members actually create fundraisers to support the cause. They plan meetups that are just like bring the community together through the platform. The third thing that Charity Water does, this is purely also on social media, is yes, you can fundraise through Facebook and Instagram. So these platforms enable you to set up fundraising. They have fundraising tools that enable you to create, whether it's birthday fundraisers from your followers and your supporters, or your brand organization can set up an annual fundraiser through your page. And the benefit of this is there are no fees to any donations that are submitted through Facebook or Instagram. Facebook and Instagram actually covers any fee. So every donation that's given through the Facebook page goes directly to your platform. So this whole case study, the reason I chose it was that you can look at, this is a brand that, yes, they're very invested on their website. That's important. But also social media is a way that they're building traction. People who are in the community groups are creating fundraisers. They're posting images about if they've ever been to a well. They're encouraging each other to support the cause. When you go to their different social media, you can see images that draw just like people in to learn more exactly about what they're doing. So, and all this is done purely on Facebook and Instagram. I haven't touched Twitter, I haven't talked to LinkedIn, but this is a way where you can use just two platforms very effectively to tell your story, to fundraise, and to build a community around your cause. So I'm gonna take a break from talking, and back to you, my attendees. I'd like to hear from you, and also this could be a way for me to also gather some information about your use of social media and what some benefits and challenges that you've had, so I can also provide insight as we go through the rest of the slides. So in the chat, I would love, and if anyone wants to also like speak out, feel free. Let me know what platforms are you on and what are some either benefits that you've had on using those platforms or some challenges that you've faced so far, whether you're new to the platforms or you've been using them for a while, that I could probably provide insight into. And the examples that I provided is one of the benefits that we've had in using LinkedIn is we're able to find a lot of new talent to hire because we're telling our employer brand story. So people are able to learn about what it means to work at our organization and therefore apply for jobs through the channel. While the challenges, I am sorry, Craig, I realize you have your hand up. Please feel free to speak up. I'm new to Zoom. I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So thanks for a great presentation. So two comments and then two questions. So one is, we're on lots of channels, and I think LinkedIn and Twitter are actually the most valuable. We have a very active Facebook group. So my two questions are, one is, what do you think of social media managers? I mean, not managers, but like the software to automate everything, where you kind of schedule in advance, and like, do you recommend that or not? And then the other question, like our Facebook group is very active, but we've been thinking about getting off of Facebook just because of all the issues, maybe going to Mighty Networks or something else. I'm just curious, like, what you think about getting, I mean, people are on Facebook, so it's easy and they engage, but Facebook just has so many problems. So just curious what you think about trying to get a group off of Facebook into another place.
Yeah, so the first question that you have is about social media tools that help you like manage different platforms, especially for organizations that have multiple accounts and multiple people who are actually logging in and managing those accounts. I work for a large organization that has about 50 social media manager individuals, and for the longest time, we used to have to like log into one platform, publish on Twitter, and then log into LinkedIn and publish. And that was, as we were building our social media presence, it was very ineffective. And when you think about like scheduling in advance or managing the type of content that's coming into different accounts, just like the oversight was missing. So once we transitioned into a tool that enabled us to bring all of that together from a legal point of view, from an oversight, that just like made everything easier to manage. And it's created efficiencies that we didn't have before, because you can publish multiple channels all at once. You can schedule in advance, and that has been very helpful. But my recommendation is, if you're able to use the free tools first, and this is one of the things I was going to talk about at the end, recommend starting with that and then seeing that what value that does for you. But on a large scale, it creates so much efficiencies, and something I would recommend. The pricing cannot be a turn off. That's the challenge. Regarding Facebook, it's a challenging topic. It's a brand that has been marred with issues, but when I think of, there is some value in using the audiences to advance causes that are actually creating a positive impact in the world. So the challenge of all the great companies leaving Facebook is that you leave all the bad groups in there. I'm trying to be as apolitical as possible. So in thinking about transitioning audiences off the platform, there's a challenge there. You're going to have attrition because people are on the platform on default. They're there for a personal point of view, and groups, because groups are being pushed by Facebook as a tool to bring communities together. There's value in using those groups. So it all depends on your point of view, like your stand as an organization. A lot of organizations have made a stand that this is something that they're not going to move forward with. But then some are realizing that that's where the largest audience of people are, and are trying to weigh their what their thinking is on that. Okay. Great. Anyone with any other question? Okay, great. We can go into okay. So we've talked about like general social media strategy. For now, I'm going to talk about best practices. And from this, for the next couple of slides, I'm going to phrase them into questions that I've received when I've worked with brands and different teams, and then answers that would be helpful for you. So when you're thinking about creating social media content, this is a very basic slide that everyone who's worked in social media has seen, but it cannot be, we cannot speak even more about it. It's very important. When writing content, think of yourself on social media. When you're scrolling on social media, these are the 4 things you're always looking for. You're looking for copy that is brief and clear. Don't use big words that like the common person will not understand. You're trying to make it as easy to understand as possible. When you're writing, have one idea per post. One of the challenges that I've seen from a lot of new people who haven't used social media before is that you're trying to say 5 things on one social media post. If you're talking about a blog, talk about that blog. If you're talking about an event, talk about that event. Don't include multiple links in one post. It confuses the user because they don't know what exactly to click on. Always have one clear call to action. If you want someone to sign up for an event, if you want someone to donate, all of these things have one thing that they have to do, because if it's confusing to what they should do next, they will just scroll past your post and go to the next one. The attention span is very low, so you're trying to attract attention and make sure that they take an action as fast as possible. The other thing that I'd like to call out to is like using of high quality content. If you're using imagery, if you're using video, be as clear as possible. Those photos need to be very high quality, whether you're using stock imagery or photos that you took on your phone. A lot of the phones these days are very high quality in the type of photos they can take. So be very like attuned to providing high quality content, especially as a brand. If you're a person, you can post a grainy photo, but for you as a brand, showing up with a blurry photo, whether it's a blurry photo of your CEO, a blurry photo of your spokesperson, it just looks very, it does not look put together. The other thing that I'd like to call out to for video, because I realize not a lot of people do have like high quality video cameras. The one thing that I would like you to pay attention to is audio. If you ever are uploading video, a lot of people they can take a blurry video, but if it's bad audio, no one's going to listen to it. So just something to pay attention to regarding quality. As I said, a question that I get a lot, and it's very key on like best practices. Should you be on all the social media platforms? A lot of social impact organizations are strapped for resources. We don't have funding. So when you're CEO or your founder comes to you and it's like, I want to be on all social media platforms, it's like, that shouldn't be the question that you have. First, you need to figure out, do you have the resources to be on all those platforms? Social media is about consistently posting, engaging with your audience. And if you don't have the resources to manage multiple platforms with the same level of care, it actually looks bad on your brand. If someone messaged you on Facebook and you can only see it at the end of the week because you have to manage Twitter and LinkedIn. So always think about, when you identify your audience, which is the first platform you should be on, and then as your resources expand, you can actually move towards the other platforms. Now, another little thing to pay attention to is like, you might just want to have your profile handles just set in advance. You could do that. You could create profiles, have your updated logo, your links to your website. The first, if it's on Twitter, you can post the first tweet and say, to learn more about us, go to our website. And you can keep that profile for your use case. Maybe you don't want to lose your handle. You can always do that and then come back to it later once you're ready to post content on that platform. And we talked about this earlier, but what exactly should you be posting on social media platforms? I like this. There's a Twitter handle that I follow for just general knowledge on social media that I keep using a lot, is known as The Cobot. And they share very quick nuggets of social media. So highly recommend. It's not my account, it's just an account that I follow. When you think about how you should post on Twitter, think about what do people do on Twitter. If you're posting on Pinterest, people are looking for inspiration. So don't post things that someone's not going to pin. So think about how you personally would show up on that platform, and then consider how your brand can mimic that presence on the platform itself. Video is another. If you type in video content on Google, it's now the up and coming. As cameras have evolved, there's a lot more capabilities that people are able to create video by themselves. We've seen more and more videos being shared on social media, because also like LinkedIn recently, I think it's the last platform to accept video. And now I think all of them, you can post video on the platforms. My recommendation is, when creating video for social media, remember that people don't have a very large attention span. People will give you 1 second to see what it's about. And if it's not entertaining or it's not educational for them, they will scroll past it. So make sure that you're packing in all the important things in the first 2 seconds of that video. You don't want people like having to wait 1 minute into the video to actually get the meat of that video. You have to be very fast on social media. And as I said, sometimes your video is entertaining. If you look at an example that I like showing, is Apple tends to create a lot of like fun videos that I can personally watch like 3 minutes of it. But that's like very high quality, very entertaining video that's shared on social media. So if you're sure that your video is entertaining, you can go longer. But for most of the time, a lot of our, like the video that it's educational. So you want to make sure you're telling the story as quickly as possible. The other question is around, how do you get better at social media? If it's your first time launching a social media account, you don't have the resources to get a social media manager, it's all about consistency. It's a skill that can be learned by anyone over time. You just have to figure out who you're speaking to, and then constantly upgrade improve your writing, improve your messaging. It's all a skill that can be learned over time. The challenge with this social media platforms is that the platforms themselves are changing every other day. So you just have to make sure you're in tune with all the trends, what's changing. For example, a new capability that Twitter now has is audio tweets, where you could record yourself for a couple of seconds and post that as a tweet. That was not a capability that was available a couple of months ago. And a lot of social media managers now are trying to figure out, how do I use that as part of my strategy? And the cool thing about these new capabilities that the platforms have, because the platforms themselves are testing them. So as they come out with new tools, highly recommend trying out the new capabilities and new tools, because the platforms are pushing them as much as possible for much more awareness, and that could be to your favor. In the same way as we talked about Facebook groups is something that Facebook is heavily leaning on and is trying to push that as a capability that they would like their users to use. So you should use that to your advantage. Have groups. Facebook is trying to bring them up for people to join groups. It's trying to clean up their Facebook groups to make sure there's proper management of them. And that should be of value to you, because you know Facebook is interested in that as well. Are there any questions so far? And I know I covered the general questions that I get on social media, but I'll stop for a couple of minutes to hear your specific questions that I might be able to answer. Feel free to also type in I'm not sure I'm saying your name right, Heber. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name. The challenge of fake news is something I cannot address in the next couple of minutes. It's as if you're on Netflix and have watched the most recent show on the social dilemma, it's something that made me very aware of my use of social media personally. The challenge is that first, as a people, when we're sharing content, we need to make sure that we're sharing content that is true, that is real. So that's our personal, should be our personal goals, not just retweeting anything that we see online because the title is interesting. But from an overall platform perspective, I think there's a lot to be done in actually trying to make sure that fake news is curbed on these platforms. Any other questions? It could be about your social media platforms. In terms of a couple of free tools, and we can talk about this. I didn't include a lot of them, but I can talk about the tools that I use as well on a day-to-day basis. Okay, great. So this is very basic, but I can talk about the free additional tools that I have. As Craig had mentioned earlier, just thinking about the value of free tools and just general social media management tools. The first two are, when you think of social media management, are tools that you can plug in your social media platforms and schedule content, schedule posts in advance. They integrate multiple social media accounts, so you don't have to natively log into one platform and then into another to publish content. Hootsuite and Buffer are ones that have free versions, and then if you want to upgrade to more accounts, you can actually pay money to be able to use extra capabilities that they have. A couple of other ones that I've seen use is Sprinkler. That's one that I don't think has a free version, but if for someone looking to get into a paid management tool, Sprinkler is one that has amazing capabilities. I've personally used Hootsuite and Sprinkler and love the platforms. In terms of the second bucket of content, which is around social media listening. So one of the values that you have on social media is you're able to listen to what people are saying about your brand or about a specific topic. And TweetDeck, for example, is a tool that enables you to actually track conversations on social media about your brand. So it enables you to engage with people through the tool itself. It's free. It's available for anyone who has a Twitter account. It's something that I recommend checking out if you haven't checked out before. Another one is Social Mentions. This is also around social media listening. You can plug in specific keywords and topics that you would like to listen to. Now, in terms of additional free tools, as Craig has mentioned in the chat, I use Canva a lot. I think They provide different templates that can be useful for people who are not they're not designers, but they're trying to create great imagery and templates for social media. You've mentioned a couple that I have never heard of for users who are looking for. I think the challenge that I've seen with sites that are such as Unsplash are, if you're looking for a diverse type of imagery, it may not provide that. There's a website known as nappy.co if you're looking for imagery for more African American individuals. I have not heard of, I'm trying to think of, what is the other free tool? I can't think of any other one at the top of my mind. Cool. I've never heard of Jumpstory. I think I'll check it out. Anyone else with some free tools that they've used before that they'd like to share with the team? I think it's very helpful for situations like this. Okay. Viviana, I can see your question, and I think we're moving into the Q&A session where I can talk about, I can answer any specific questions that you have. Would you say the demographics for Instagram and Twitter tend to be younger? Let's see. So when it comes to Twitter, Twitter has a more, and I'll share a link with the team regarding the social media breakdown. A website that I recommend everyone checking out is known as Social Media Today. It's something that I subscribe to. They have daily newsletters that just give you the updates on what's changing on social media and such information about demographics for different websites, for different social media accounts, because they do change over time. Instagram and TikTok are, when you think of like the audience, for example, Instagram on average is between 25 to 30 something. That's an audience breakdown that I've seen. If you want to get the specifics, highly recommend checking out Social Media Today for that. And Twitter ranges depending on what industry you're in. You could get someone who is in their 40s to 60s on Twitter, depending on what, like, for example, if you think of financial services, tends to be older, male. But if you're looking for younger, Instagram is much younger in terms of like usage. Facebook, it runs the whole gamut. So you have a much more room to play with regarding audience. Okay. Anyone else with questions? We're now in the Q&A session, and before I even take any questions, my name is Viona Sheena Lebu. Feel free you can contact me via if you've never used one of these QR codes, most cameras will just like direct you to a link once you put your phone on in front of them. But as a quick just overview of what we've covered today, I think the first law of social media is if you want someone to follow you on social media, you need to provide value, whether it's entertainment, education, inspiration. You have to figure out what exactly are you providing people so that they have the incentive to follow you. There are accounts that I follow because they provide motivational quotes at the beginning of the day. There are accounts that I follow because they tell me what's happening with the stock market every day. So I follow different accounts for different reasons, but there is a reason. So when you're posting content, always have that in mind for your brand, for your personal use. If you're trying to build following, always provide value. And in terms of just like a recipe for social media success, as I said, I recommend the Cobot because it's a free tool, because they share just like general great social media advices. Identify your niche audience, speak to your audience consistently, and make your content easy to consume, short, sweet messages, one click through action. And also listen to your audience. One of the things that a lot of brands forget to do is doing social listening around your brands. You need to, for a lot of big brands, when things happen, when something goes viral, the first time they're seeing it, it's on tools that they have set up. you don't want to show up on the Twitter trend about something negative that your brand is involved in. You need to be aware of the conversations and figure out what trends are showing up. So if whether it's a crisis moment or it's something positive, so you can like be part of that conversation with your audience. Great. Thank you everyone for joining the session today. I realize it's evening. It's also pretty dark where I am right now. Have a lovely day, evening, wherever you are. I appreciate your time and hope to connect with you later. Okay, bye.